The title of today's show, Chris, is what are realistic expectations for South Carolina's latest signee, Neff Giwa? And Chris, I want to talk about the most overused word in sports media. And to me, and actually I'm gonna give you two very overused words. So the two most overused words in sports media are interesting and intriguing.
I feel seen.
Man, this is going to be interesting. Hey, that'll be an interesting game. This will be an intriguing game. You've told me nothing. So
I'm hurt. My feelings are legit hurt
I'm talking about all of us, dude. It's the most. I got nothing to kick off this sentence with, or I'm thinking about what I'm going to say next. Man, this will be an interesting matchup. No, obviously it will be. The two most overused words in coaching and sports and evaluation, upside and potential.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to break all the rules on this, though, man. I'm going to go ahead and say it is okay to say the Neff Giwa career, dare you even say a little bit of an experiment, the whole thing is going to be one of the most interesting careers to watch in recent South Carolina football memory because of his upside and potential.
Man, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that gets thrown around way too much, what I just said. But in this case, you can allow it because the array of possible outcomes for this are from the absolute highest ceiling to the absolute lowest floor.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have an athlete with numbers reportedly on par with guys who were at the top in the NFL Combine this year. And you also have a football player who has never actually played football.
Yeah, it's kind of like the description we got. It's like has never put on shoulder pads and a helmet at the same time, right? Like pretty extreme, right? Because if you say, hey, this 40 time would have been the fastest at the combine. This vertical jump would have been and it's like true, but also never played football, So it's like the guys at the NFL Combine have played football, lots of it, when they go out there. And so you also, Wes, you did a bonus because you included not my personally, but on my list of most overused phrases, you used the word experiment. That's okay. On my personal list. Please,
I'm gonna look for that now.
Yeah.
I don't think I've noticed that one for you, but I'm going to look for that now.
The so-and-so experiment is a failure. The whatever experiment, I feel it's not used as much as intriguing or interested, probably. Still very overused. Very overused. So,
we're hitting all the bingo.
All the bingo card is completely. What's the one blackout bingo where you just try to hit all of them on the card at the same time?
Yeah, we hit them in the first 5 minutes of the show.
That's what we've done. But like, man, I'm trying to think of another word to describe it. Fascinating. Well, I mean, like, you've got this kid that kind of just came on this. He hasn't even been on the scene for long. It's like he pops up. Here's this kid, rugby player, international player. And it's not like this thing was percolating for a few months. It's like, here he is, boom, offers, coming left and right. Here's South Carolina. Here's Miami. Same organization, Wes, PPI, Brandon Collier, runs camps, like finds prospects who sometimes have a football background, an international football background, sometimes not much of any football background, right? Like he'll find guys and help put them on the radar that were soccer players or whatever it may be. And so when you look at Neff Giwa, this is a guy that, again, hasn't put on shoulder pads and a helmet, hasn't played in a snap of competitive football, but yet he has those traits where you're like, man, if these traits can translate, it could really turn into something, you know? And I think in one way, it's exciting because if you're South Carolina, you're bringing this guy in, low risk, potentially extremely high reward. This is not a kid where you're going, hey, could he end up playing some snaps for us this year? Like, I think you need to bring the expectations super low, because if that happened, it would be the bonus of all bonuses. But with development, and you have a completely blank slate to work with, which I think in one way you go, okay, there's a lot of development to do. On the other hand, you're starting from a completely blank canvas. You don't have to teach this kid, hey, your footwork is completely jacked up. Hey, these are the techniques that you were taught in high school or wherever, or the previous college you came from. We're doing it this way. You get to get him in this summer and teach him that from the very start. And you add this guy in as just a raw athlete where the payoff could be substantial. Now, offensive line, very developmental position. I think you put it well on the radio earlier. Offensive line and quarterback, two hardest positions, two of the most developmental positions on the field, the two most developmental positions, I think. And so we've seen some examples of development of guys that were, we might as well go ahead and use it again, intriguing when they got to Carolina, right? I think there's different levels to it. There's Nick Harbor, who comes in as a guy with Olympic track speed, who, yes, had a football background, but not at receiver. Like, he was still very much learning how to play receiver. I even think less of a guy like Darius Rush, right? Where you're bringing him in, football background, yes, standout track athlete at a smaller school level. I always looked at him and went, man, I'd really like to see what he looked like as a DB. Came to Carolina as a receiver, took a while, and then eventually became an SEC starter and gets a shot in the NFL, right? This Neff Giwa get is like the most extreme of all examples, because the measurables in the athleticism are absolutely off the charts, but there's absolutely no football background that you can look at. So it's a pure projection. It's an athletics experiment. I'll use that word again. But if it pays off and he's got the athleticism to where you wouldn't be surprised if it did, that's a potentially a great move for the Gamecocks.
Yeah, so the numbers 6'7.5", 295, 300, something like that. That's pretty obviously that's like elite size already for an offensive tackle. He actually, though, Chris, is going to have to gain some weight looking at him, because he is so tall, he is so long, and he carries 300 pounds, about like a lot of guys carry 230, 240, honestly. Now, the frame appears to be there, and I got to imagine, with him playing rugby and soccer and the different things, never has really, I would imagine, been lifting to gain a bunch of weight and muscle mass. So, this dude could be an easy 330, I think, once he gets deep into an SEC weight program, and the amount of just calories and protein that those guys are going to be able to eat on a daily basis in the SEC. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. But, you look at the rest of the measurables, reportedly 4.88 in the 40-yard dash. That would have been the fastest time among offensive linemen. This let me make sure I got this right. Would have been the fastest of any offensive lineman at this year's combine. And Chris, if you go to NFL.com, it will let you pull up. I think it doesn't go back forever. I think it goes back to about 2013 or so. So over 10 years, 4.88 would have been like a top 10 time out of anybody during that time. Now, if we're going to be, the whole point of this question is to be completely fair. At the combine, dude, they're putting you on a laser. Like, you are running a true 4.88. No exaggerations, no room for the stopwatch got clicked a little bit too fast. None of that. So again, let's have some perspective. Now at 6, almost 8, 300 pounds to run even on a hand time, that's insane. The broad, which was 9 feet and 10 inches, would have tied with a center. Can't remember the guy's name, but it was a center who typically isn't going to be 6'7", 6'8", but still, that would have tied for the number one, like the longest broad jump in the combine this year. And the arm length, which people may say, well, who cares about arm length? It does matter for offensive tackles because you're just talking about creating that distance between you and that edge rusher, that defensive end who is trying to obviously get around you and get in the backfield and get to the quarterback. You're able to create that room, create that space. And this is the one that actually is insane. 37-inch arms, the longest arms of any offensive line prospect this year at the combine was 34 and a half inches. So just insanity there. Again, dude, high reward potentially, low risk. I also think worth pointing out this report or tweet or whatever that was put out there about, well, South Carolina offered him this huge NIL deal in order to commit before he went to Miami. Without getting into the details of any of that, that's just simply not true. Like, we'll just put it like that. It's not true. We were told, according to multiple people, like, yeah, South Carolina prioritized him. They beat out Miami. They beat out Texas. They beat out Tennessee. They beat out some marquee programs, this kid. It's not like they dropped a bag, so to speak, for a guy who's never played organized football before. So we'll see, man. I mean, you're talking about a team, a program now that has on their roster, on campus, Nick Harbor, Dylan Stewart, Lenora Sellers, Neff Giwa, Jacarius Peak, when healthy. People forget Peak was on the freaks list from Bruce Feldman, who kicked off this recruitment, it seems like, last year when he was at NC State, and none of us would have had any reason to notice that at the time because he wasn't at South Carolina, obviously. But you are talking about a program that has definitely leaned into the measurables and the traits in terms of guys they've been able to get.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, especially when you pair it with, like, I think some different things happen. You hear about, oh, here's this freak guy who's going to play offensive tackle. And you may even breeze past the part where, like, not only is he inexperienced with football, he has no experience. Then you read about, again, as you pointed out, important to say inaccurately, like the idea of this bidding war. And you go, okay, boy, South Carolina must be going after this guy because they think he can come in and play right away. And that's really not it. Like, South Carolina is excited about this get, but there's not anybody in that building right now who's saying, we're really counting on him to come in and play this year, right? Again, if that happens, it's the bonus of all bonuses. This is a guy that you bring in because you're very excited about his athleticism and his upside, and then you see what happens, and it could pay off tremendously. If South Carolina was weighing, hey, we've got to go get another JUCO guy, or we got to go get another grad transfer guy, which is, I think, also possible and on the table, versus taking this guy and you got one spot, don't get confused that they're bringing him in in this class in the summer to mean, okay, they've got to get him ready to play this year. I don't think that pressure to do that is here. It is when you're bringing in guys through the transfer portal, right? As we know, Carolina rebuilt this offensive line room. This is part of it, but this is a little bit more of a down the road move. But man, I mean, you just think about this. I mean, we've seen Randy Clements has background in taking guys that have multi-sport backgrounds. He's had a player from Germany. He's had a guy with a hockey background that he developed into first and second round NFL draft picks. We've seen, I mean, the one I always love, Wes, Lane Johnson from the Eagles. When he got to college, he was a 6'6", 202-pound quarterback. And by the time he finishes his career, he's almost unrecognizable. He's this big monster offensive tackle who ends up being a first rounder and playing in the league for years. So I think that's the trajectory you're looking for. And that could the payoff be this is an NFL offensive lineman from an athleticism measurable standpoint. Like he checks those boxes very well, but there's a lot that goes into the game. You said this on the radio earlier. What does he think of the game of football? When he gets in, like we don't have the answers to that. I think it's a positive that he has the right mindset. I think it's a positive, frankly, that he's a rugby player. Those dudes are built different in some ways. But there's so many questions here about it. But what he does have, Wes, that you just don't get guys that walk in your door every day or ever is that amazing combination of like the size to athleticism ratio. He has that, and you can work with that.
Yeah, you got to be a little bit on the edge there, man, to play rugby. Like these guys have a different type of toughness, honestly, and they're not all padded up. And to me, there's a little bit of curiosity about, can I play this guy in some weird role in year one? Like, can I put him at tight end on the goal line? Can I put him on special teams? Can I do something with this, like versus just tackle development?